So who's the perfect team for James Wiseman? I'm assuming that he doesn't fall past Charlotte at number 3. For some reason, Wiseman's like kind of the most interesting prospect for me up top. I don't have a real reason for that, he just kind of is. To talk about Wiseman a little bit, really athletic, long wingspan. You'd think on offense he can certainly be a guy to roll to the rim. He probably has some pick and pop potential right now. I don't think he's a guy who's going to be super threatening from outside. I don't think teams are going to be rushing to close out on him if he's open from 3 or whatever. They're probably going to dare him a bit. But there's potential there for him to be okay at that stuff right away, with hope that he can be an above average shooter in time. You would think that he can also go off the dribble, which could open up more offense for him, because that way, he can pop and then he can attack the guy closing out on him and get around him, and then he can create offense out of that or finish. His finishing skills seem really good. You expect him to be a guy to catch a lot of lobs, be effective on fast breaks. He does have some post-up potential as well. It's not as refined as you'd love it to be right now, but, basic hook shots, basic fadeaways, that type of thing, you'd think he can have success. You imagine that he's got a frame that can put on a decent amount of weight. I mean, he's listed at like 7'1" and 240 pounds right now. You assume he can probably put on about another 15, maybe 20 or so, and be a guy who can bully guys around in the paint a little bit while being more athletic than most NBA bigs. And if it wasn't obvious, you'd hope he can be a guy who can roll to the rim and all that for you. As far as on the defensive side of the floor, I mean, he's got the physical tools to be a really, really good defender. And I think he might be athletic enough to where you could hope that he can switch. I think his rim protection could be really good day one in the NBA. The question is just, is he going to have the IQ defensively to really, really be good? And is he going to be able to just know what the rotation is and communicate on defense and be that defensive leader and all that stuff that we hope some guys can get to and not all of them can? But he's got the physical tools for it, certainly. Now, other fears with Wiseman, and we'll eventually get to the other, the teams who could pick him here. His shot selection is not the best. He does like his fadeaways and things like that, and you hope he can improve as a playmaker and things like that. So, yeah, anyway, if we talk about the teams. So, I did touch on Wiseman and his potential in Minnesota a bit in the video yesterday, so I don't want to harp on it for too long. But basically, it's, do you think he can really play next to Towns? The idea is Towns can space for Wiseman when he's around the rim. Hopefully Wiseman can space for Towns when Towns is around the rim. And then defensively, Wiseman can be the center and Towns can defend power forwards. Now, I don't know if Towns can defend fours like that. I don't know if Wiseman can be the shooter like that, but if you were really going to swing for the fences, that would potentially be the way to do it, because if you're Minnesota, because with Wiseman, it's just this idea of a big man who can shoot and dribble and finish next to Karl Anthony Towns. That could be pretty devastating. It's just, you might have to climb a few hurdles to get there, and it just might not be maximizing Wiseman's skill set. I mean, we'll get to the Hornets in a little bit here. Like, the Hornets, I feel like if Wiseman was selected by them, and I think there's a decent chance, they would just feed him the ball all the time. Whereas in Minnesota, there'd be possessions where Wiseman's just kind of sitting from 15 feet away from the basket, or he's sitting in the corner, or he's just not really doing a whole lot. And I mean, sure, Wiseman could set screens for D'Angelo Russell, and that could be good, but even then, how often would you really want to do that? Because now Towns isn't involved in the play. Like, the Wiseman-Towns thing, it's kind of really interesting, but in other ways, it's like, well, maybe, but it just might be too much. Anyway, we move on to Golden State. So, if he was on the Warriors, Wiseman would probably have the least amount of pressure of any of the other teams that could select him. He would not be viewed as the guy who's going to turn it all around, and he could fit in with the Golden State. Now, fitting in with him probably still means like 15 points and 12 rebounds a game or something, but just that kind of thing, right? And you would hope that with a team like Golden State that emphasizes defense so much, that Wiseman right from the jump would just be all in on that side of the floor, because Draymond is not going to let you just focus on your offense or whatever. Like, he's going to be yelling at you on defensive rotations. He's going to be yelling at you about bad contests or bad fouls or whatever, and that could be really good for Wiseman. Now, it could be bad if he's not ready for that sort of thing, but I'll just be optimistic and say that Wiseman is ready for professional players to yell at him when he screws up. The other thing that's pretty obvious is the amount of open shots he could get just from setting screens for Clay and Steph, whether it's on the ball or off the ball. I mean, we're talking cuts to the basket. I think the times when you see Draymond lob it up to Looney or whoever the past couple years, that would be even more devastating with Wiseman. And it would just kind of force Wiseman to be a professional faster than any other team. I mean, I guess, Minnesota, if they were to pick him, they're pretty desperate to make a jump next season. But even so, it's a bunch of guys who haven't had much success in the NBA, right? Whereas the Warriors, you're just walking in with totally different expectations. The other thing to think about if the Warriors select Wiseman is the potential for more just on-ball screens, because we know that's been a conversation with Golden State about, well, they like to run all the off-ball stuff, but in the close game, late, just run some simple pick and rolls. Well, Wiseman could give you this ability to do that. I mean, part of the reason they didn't do it is because it's like, okay, we ran a screen with Kevon Looney. Hooray. Like, Wiseman is a whole different thing. And if you're going up against a Warriors team that has already got Steph and Clay, and maybe Wiggins will be good, and whoever else they could get, and then you got Draymond who can make a play, and then Wiseman who could grow as a ball handler and a shooter, and he's still going to be athletic as all hell around the basket, then that could be a lot of stuff that you got to deal with. As far as what the Warriors want to do with the pick, well, that's a whole nother conversation. They're probably going to be looking around, seeing what they can get, and whatever. I mean, based on names that have been suggested, the one that I think of immediately is Aaron Gordon. I would rather have James Wiseman than Gordon. I don't really know who else is available like that. Anyway, we move on to Charlotte, who, like I said earlier, I think in terms of if you just want to see Wiseman put up a crap ton of points, I think Charlotte's the team. I mean, I think there's a chance he would just become the number one option over Devontae Graham. It should be said that Rozier attempted basically the same amount of shots as Devontae did. I think the fit with Wiseman here is pretty obvious. It's Wiseman setting screens for Devontae and Rozier, and PJ is a pretty good power forward next to Wiseman. I think that would make sense. And maybe Miles Bridges is your small forward. I still don't totally know with Miles Bridges if he's good or not. He's okay, certainly. And then you just kind of go from there. I mean, how devastating could a Devontae Graham, James Wiseman pick and roll be? I mean, I guess it depends on Devontae improving his 2-point percentage. His threes are great, but he's not really frightening anybody with his pull-up mid-range or his floaters or whatever else. His playmaking is good, though. So, I mean, certainly be some lobs up to Wiseman as a result. You figure Rozier can do a similar thing. But I also think there would just be a good amount of post-ups for Wiseman as well, and I think you could have success. I mean, there's good amounts of shooting on this Charlotte team. They really emphasized three-point attempts this year. They told a lot of their veterans who couldn't shoot to just kind of go away, between MKG and Nicholas Batum and Marvin Williams. So they seem to be pretty updated, and James Borrego seems like an okay coach. I mean, if the Hornets really do select Wiseman, then I guess that would be the true test to see how good Borrego is, because those would be expectations from day one, which is potentially unfair for Wiseman. Again, he would certainly have the most pressure on him if he was going to Charlotte. But that's how it is, man, you know? And then it would be a matter of, well, can Borrego get Wiseman some open shots? How much screen setting is he going to do? How much stuff is he going to do besides just trying to post up on 7-footers? Can you get him into mismatches, and can you use his handle and his potential jump shot and things like that? So, yeah, I think Charlotte would be the team that asked him to do the most. I think if he ended up with the Hornets, I feel like there's a chance that Wiseman could look not as great defensively because he's asked to do more on offense, where if he's on the Warriors, he could step up on defense kind of right away. And that could be the kind of the turning point. Maybe that's not the right term because it's literally the start of his NBA career, but that could be the thing that establishes how good defensively Wiseman is. Like if he's on the Warriors, I wouldn't be shocked if he was an all-defense guy and all that stuff, where if he was on the Hornets, it'd be like, well, he's sometimes good on defense, Now, it's certainly possible to do both things, but it's tough. It requires a lot of energy, and, it's just not easy to be an awesome defensive player and do a lot on offense as a center when you're talking about boxing out and you're getting an elbow in your back all the time. It's a lot of stuff you got to do. I should have also said Wiseman's going to get a lot of free throw attempts in the NBA. He's going to get fouled a lot. So yeah, I guess what I'm saying is the Wolves fit's kind of awkward. The Warriors fit, I could picture him being a better defender. If he's on the Hornets, more scoring, more shooting, stuff like that. What do I think the perfect team for him is? I think it's Golden State. Whether it's perfect for them is a different conversation. They're talking about, who's out there, who's available for the pick, all that stuff. Maybe they think LaMelo or Denny is better for them. But in terms of just Wiseman himself, yeah, I think the best choice for his career is Golden State. So that's all I got. I guess I can talk a little bit about if he falls past number 3, which I don't think will happen, but, potentially. The Bulls, they've already got Wendell and Markkanen. The Cavs, so they have Drummond and Tristan Thompson. I don't think either one of those guys are good enough to pass up on Wiseman. The Hawks, I don't think they would because they got Capella. The Pistons, Christian Wood, probably more of a power forward. Past number 3, I think the most interesting team for him would probably be Detroit. I don't think he falls all the way to number 7. But I feel like Cleveland would take him if he fell that far. I know they're, for some reason, they're on the Andre Drummond hype train right now, but you wouldn't allow Andre Drummond to be the reason you didn't select James Wiseman, right? I guess we can only assume. But yeah, that's it. Warriors would be my pick, and then whatever else.